Ready to rock and roll?
I'm ready to party.
Hey, brother.
Hey, Al.
And welcome everyone back to another episode of Siblings in Crime. I'm Allie Rossell.
And I'm Blake Murphy.
And just as it sounds, we are siblings who love true crime.
Yes, love it. Love it.
Love it very much. Well, we are going to be telling you a news story this week. I'm not sure if you've heard it, Blake. However, there's a lot to it, so we're going to jump right into it. But as always, if you haven't yet, please like, follow, subscribe. Do you have a new total for us this week with subscribers?
77.
77. Last week was what, 64?
I think so. I don't remember.
So thank you everyone who's been following us. It means a lot. And please send it to a friend. It helps a lot.
Yep.
All right, so diving into this week's case. Imagine you're at home late at night. The house is quiet, but then a knock. Not at the door, but from inside the house. You brush it off, like house creaks, whatever. But then objects begin to move, and soon the whispers in the dark become too loud to ignore. Maybe people would think it's your imagination. Maybe some people think maybe it's a ghost or a haunting. But what if the ghost wasn't a ghost after all? Well, in this case, it wasn't. It was something living, something hiding. And within a year, it would go from haunting a family home to committing one of the most shocking murders in Massachusetts history. And this is the story of Daniel LaPlante. You ready?
Dang, I'm ready.
Let's roll. The Bowen family had been through their fair share of heartache and trials. And after the death of their mother, the three children, so there's three girls, like early teens, like 15 and younger, their grief never fully left. In their small Massachusetts town, life carried on, but the ache of loss, it just lingered inside their home, which I feel like is one of the saddest things about grief is it's a hard thing. Like, this is like the biggest, saddest event of your life. And I think one of the hardest parts is that everyone else's life just seems to keep moving when it feels like yours is so paralyzing. Mm-hmm. And it seems like in this little home with like the dad and three girls, this is what they're experiencing. It's like life kind of shut down for them, and it just is like even harder that everyone else's life is just carrying on like nothing happened. But one night in the summer of 1986, so we're like way backtracking.
1986?
1986. Yep.
Okay.
The girls were desperate for connection, which makes sense. It's like prime years for girls to be close with their mom and stuff like that. And so they had heard about ghost stories, and they decided that they were going to grab a Ouija board and try and contact
First mistake.
First mistake. I think Ouija boards were like a thing in the 80s. I feel like you don't really hear about them nowadays. Like, kids aren't pulling out Ouija boards. But like every scary movie, it was like back in the day that they're using Ouija boards.
True.
I feel like our equivalent was like Bloody Mary.
Yeah.
Is that what's called? Bloody Mary?
Yeah.
I remember we would try to do that. I can't remember if I was genuinely scared or not, but every kid has like their something they got to try, you know?
Yep.
And so this was it for the 15-year-old and the two younger girls. They would ask questions, and they came to believe that their mom was actually responding. Like, they would hear knocks back, and at first they're stoked. They're like, that is mom, she's communicating, and they're like jazzed, right? But in the days and weeks that followed, the family began to notice some stranger things, some like less comforting things, I guess. It was like noises at night began to like wake them up. So it wasn't just like, oh, maybe I heard a creak and maybe it's my mom. It was like the girls are starting to wake up from these noises for the first time. And a weird thing, too, is that these disturbances not only just grew louder, but when they would come home, things seemed to be placed in different spots. So maybe that's your imagination. Maybe it's not. But like, it seems like for the girls, they're starting to believe that maybe it's not their mom. Maybe with the Ouija board, they literally like summoned some demon or something crazy.
Yeah.
Which would be so
Something
scary.
else.
Yeah, you're 15. You think you invited a demon into your house?
Yeah.
These girls had been like terrified. I'd be like literally crying every single night if that was the case. So I used Wendigoon, if that's the YouTube name, quite a bit.
That guy's cool.
Yeah, I mean, he's like the real deal. Really was able to deep dive. He actually used this guy named Joe Turner, who was actually the man who wrote a book on various first-hand accounts of today's story. So I'm hoping that
So this is like a ghost story?
it starts off as a ghost story.
Oh.
But this is what their accounts are, and this is why they're led to believe that there is a ghost in their house. So from these first-hand accounts that we get from Joe through this YouTube guy, they said that one girl swears she woke up with breadcrumbs on her face, which is so random.
Wait, this is the actual girl that we're talking about in the story? Or
Yeah.
is it like, okay, cool.
So, like, obviously, it's not like I got in contact with these girls.
No, yeah. I just was wondering if, like, they were talking about other instances where this has happened or if they're talking about the actual people.
Yeah, no, this is about the actual people. So, this is some of the accounts that Joe has gotten from these girls, like the actual people. And so I'm going to tell you some of the stories that those people, these 3 young teenagers experienced in their home. So one being breadcrumbs when you wake up. I feel like I wouldn't think anything about that. I'd be like, that's kind of weird. But maybe if it was like a lot, I would notice.
Yeah.
Another said that they came in their room to their mother's wedding dress spread across the bed. And on a different occasion, there was a trail of pennies leading up the stairs.
Creepy.
Weird. That's like super weird. Cause like
super weird.
Super weird. I'd be creeped out. Especially because like my first thought would be like, oh, Blake's being annoying. Like he's pulling a prank. But it seems like all the girls.
I just scare you.
I know the amount of jump scares that I have to live through. But I guess it goes by.
Still.
Yeah, still. That's what I get for staying at your house like 3 days a week.
Yeah.
But so for that, like the girls, they're thinking like this is really weird, and I guess like the dad believes that the girls think that they're getting haunted, but he himself is not like we're getting haunted. Believer. Yeah, he's not a believer right now. So they were convinced once that someone had peed in their bathtub. Even they woke up and they said they swear they saw pee in the bathtub, so they thought that was odd, of course. And one time they even went into their basement, and the words "I'm in your room, come and find me" was written on the wall.
Jeez.
Yeah. And a few weeks later, a similar message...
Is the dad messing with him?
Can you imagine? A few weeks later, a similar message said, "I'm back, find me if you can." And this is written in shaving cream. Weird. Do you think the dad's playing tricks?
Yeah.
How messed up these girls lose their mom to cancer, and the dad's like, "I'm going to prank him into thinking a demon is in the house." That would be literally... But, I mean, you see people that are messed up all the time.
Yeah, like the Netflix girl.
Oh, my gosh. Unknown number. Yeah. Whatever. I saw that it was obviously the mom. Hopefully that's not a spoiler. On TikTok. So I obviously didn't get to, like, have the real reaction. Mm-hmm. But seeing people's reaction is always so funny. Like, what? So, yeah, I guess you got me there. So there's a lot of weirdos. You might be onto something. But what started as hope, like when they contacted thinking it was their mom, that like quickly changed. And now they're thinking something's going on, we're haunted. And this actually goes on for months. It wasn't it wasn't continuous. It wasn't every single night they're getting like tortured. But every so often over a few month span, they were having like weird disturbances in the house. And like I said, not surprisingly, Frank was like, oh, it's just the girls' imaginations. They're dealing with grief. And I believe that he might have taken them to therapy. It depends on the source.
Therapy back in the day?
Yeah, whatever that looks like. A psychiatrist type of thing. Mm. I'm sure they had therapy back then.
I don't know. I'll look it up.
We don't know anything about the 80s, I swear. Whether there was therapy or not, we don't know. But I think they went to some sort of psychiatrist or whatever. But... in his eyes, there was no real concerns. But that was until late in the evening on a cold December night in 1986. So you find therapy before I move on?
So there's yes.
I would be shocked otherwise. That's like mom being 20 getting therapy, and I feel like that would have been a thing, but probably not as widely used as it is nowadays.
Yeah.
That'd be my guess.
I'm sure it's,
Doesn't be like used. Therapists that were therapists back in the 80s going, "You idiots."
I've been a therapist for 50 years. What do you think?
Back like 40 years ago? It's like not even that long ago. That's funny. All right, well, that takes us up to December, like I said. So all of this started happening in January-ish or April, depending on the source. I'm going to say March, April, but anyways, it's been months. So we're in December of 1986 when Frank Bowen pulled the car into the driveway. Tina and her sisters, Tina's the 15-year-old, and her younger sisters, tumbled out behind him, following him into the house. They were all, I don't know what they were doing that night, but anyways, they all get home together. Of course, they're teenagers, so they don't notice anything. They walk in, go straight to the house. However, when they stepped in, Frank noticed something was off right away. The living room was like slightly disordered. And what I mean by that, it's like rather than anything look like it's getting taken, like didn't look like a robbery, but it's like, oh, the couch is slightly misplaced and the lampshade is slightly tilted and things like that, which is funny because you just changed you just pushed the couch up a few feet,
Yeah.
And Mom walked in. I know. I said, did you notice something? And she did not notice the couch was pushed up. And she's pretty detail-oriented with that.
Yeah.
So the fact that Frank noticed is pretty telling.
It must have moved a lot.
It must have moved
Or a different direction or something.
Or maybe it's on carpet and you're like, oh, the print,
Yeah.
So something like that. It's like unknown in that sense. But they're like, the kitchen light was on and they didn't leave it on. It's like little nuances.
They have electricity in the 80s?
You shut up right now. Wait, when was light bulbs invented? Yeah. So at this point, Frank himself is starting to get a little anxious because he was with the girls. So it's not like the girls are pulling a prank on him.
Yeah, or he's playing a prank on them.
Yeah, or maybe he could be pulling a prank on them. But he himself is saying he's anxious. And he heard his daughter's worries and fears all the way up to this point, like the knocking on the wall, all the stuff.
He didn't really believe him.
Right. He didn't really believe them. But now he's starting to feel a little weird about the house situation. So he actually decided.
They lived in that house the whole time?
Yeah, they weren't like new move-ins or anything like that. He decided it was time to put this all to rest. The demons, the stories, the mom reaching out, all that. He wanted to get it over with. So he grabbed... A priest? No. He wanted to check it out for himself. He's like, okay.
A Ouija board?
No. He just wanted to check out the house. He's like, he knew.
He's not looking at it every day?
Yeah. Well, he recognized that things had been misplaced while they were gone. So he's like, is something going on with the house? So he wanted to go check out the other rooms, see if anything else seemed odd the same way it did in the living room and in the kitchen. So he grabs a flashlight and he started to go room by room, seeing if anything was abnormal.
Why didn't you just turn on the lights?
I'm sure he turned on the lights, but maybe look in the little crevices. I don't know what he's doing. I don't even know for a fact he grabbed a flashlight. I'm sure he did. Some reports said he grabbed a flashlight, but I'm not going to copy word for word on other stories. So, regardless, he's room to room. The hallway, it's creaking, but it's the normal creaks, nothing weird. Checks the bedroom, boom, empty, nothing looks different. Checks the bathroom, it looks clear, nothing's different. So he's about to turn back when he thought he heard like a little bit of a thump. So he's like,
Attic.
I'm going to go check it out. No, he goes back to a different room, a room he hasn't checked yet. As he's approaching, he crosses like into the room or whatever, and the window's closed. Like it doesn't look like there's been an intruder or anything weird, right? That is until he sees the closet and it's like kind of open. And so he goes over and opens the closet. And once he did, the most confusing and horrifying sight jumped out at him. It was a teenager.
Whoa.
He was 16. He was dirty. He was gross. His hair is like
He's
stuck
living
up.
in there.
Yeah, so his hair is like gross and matted. And he had, depending on sources, he had like face paint on and like supposedly like ketchup and different condiments to like kind of look like a mask.
Yeah.
You don't do well with condiments.
Yeah.
So he looked like he was
Especially
like a masked...
Mayo.
What?
Especially not mayo.
Yeah, you do really bad with mayo. So already startled, not expecting to see anybody in his house. Then this guy is literally carrying Frank's own hatchet. Okay.
Oh dang, this guy's bad.
It's raised, ready to roll. And so Frank, he books it.
They need ADT. Is there
this
ADT
is an
in
ad
1980?
No.
What was it?
86. So obviously he's terrified. He steps back, and this random stranger commands him and his daughters to go into a room and go lock themselves in this room. It's unclear if he's demanding it or they just run and do it on their own. Most sources say that he told them to do it Regardless, Frank's body is moving way before he even processes it, and he grabs his girls. They're sprinting down the hall, and they run into the master bedroom. They lock themselves in, and Frank is literally like pushing himself against the door, making sure that this guy isn't going to try and break down the door into the bedroom. I'd be literally bawling at this point. And so he has his girls.
You've done it before.
Yeah, we're going to tell that story next week.
Yeah.
But we are, so he has his girls behind him, and they're like obviously terrified. And the oldest, Tina, she's 15, she decides she's going to jump out the 2-story window and go get a neighbor for help to call the police. Yeah, intense. So, of course, the neighbors are going to call the cops and be able to help where they can, just comforting Tina at this point. Inside, Frank pressed his shoulder hard against the door. His heart is literally probably just pounding like crazy, I imagine, listening for the sound of the boys' steps. Instead came silence, an awful, consuming silence, as if the house was literally holding its breath itself. By the time the police arrived, it had only been a few minutes. The intruder had already vanished. The Bowens were left shaking, trying to make sense of what had just happened. And Frank was left with a single unshakable fear that whoever that boy was, he made it into their house undetected, and who's to say he couldn't do it again? I feel like if someone ever broke into our house, I would have a really hard time ever sleeping again for the rest of my life. Mm-hmm. Like, that is a very scary thought. And he obviously just lost his wife, and he has these 3 young girls. I imagine there's a lot of fear that is going on in that household.
Yeah. Didn't he say the window was open?
It
or
was
unlocked?
No, none of that.
Oh.
Or I don't know if it was unlocked. The resources didn't say. But it was like, there, when the police went around, it didn't look like there was any signs of an intruder. Mm-hmm. Like, there was no like damaged doorknob and locks or anything of those obvious
No
signs.
condiments on the ground?
No condiments on the ground that I know of. So it seemed like it was a weird like slip in, slip out, and maybe they just caught him in the act. Maybe it wasn't for like to harm them or anything, mm-hmm. right? So I'm sure they're telling themselves these stories to be able to sleep. But police cars rolled up to the Bowen house, and their red and blue lights pulsing across the lawn. Officers spilled out, weapons drawn, eyes scanning the tree line. They're doing everything to try and calm the situation down. They expected footprints or like literally anything, and nothing was like of useful evidence. There was no like forensics. Obviously, forensics are different in the 80s. So they're looking for fingerprints. They're looking for all that kind of stuff. And the house seems to be wiped clean. So room after room came up empty, and they moved on. And so one officer even climbed into the attic, like you said. Another checked the basement. There's cobwebs, old toys, literally nothing else. And they even opened a crawl hatchets and cabinet doors, sweeping every corner with light. So they're like, literally, they looked in every single crevice. Nothing. Frank's biggest fear at this point is if the police can't find him, he was still on the loose. The Bowens didn't spend another night in that house right away. Rightfully so. They actually went to Frank's eldest daughter. I guess he had an older daughter that lived somewhere else, mm-hmm. and they went and stayed with her so they can get a couple of nights of rest and be able to kind of settle down after this literally traumatic experience. But 2 days later, on December 10th, 1986, they actually returned because the night that this all happened, they went pretty quick, and so they wanted to go back and just grab a couple of things. They weren't planning on staying that night or anything. They were just grabbing a few of their belongings. But when they pulled up, they like look to the house as they're pulling up, and they freeze right where they're at because they see a man peering back at them from an upstairs window. And they're like, he's in the house. So not surprisingly, they're like, we're not going in the house. Frank and the daughters go across the street. They go back to that same neighbor, and they call the cops and let them know he's back. We just saw him in the house, in the window. Like, come quick. And so officers, they get there quick, and they're searching every room, every corner again. And it was immediately apparent that there was no forced entry. However, they checked the attic. However, there was a framed photo of Tina, which is really creepy, that had a kitchen knife stabbed through the photo.
Jeez.
Horrifying.
I wouldn't live there.
Me neither. And there was writing on the wall in magic marker this time that said, "I'm still here, come find me." That's terrifying.
He's in the wall.
So people are like, okay, are we actually seeing this person? Like, is this literally a ghost? Like, I know Frank's like, no, I swear I saw this human. Like, they're all convinced. But yeah, like that's what I'm saying. They couldn't find him. And so near the bathroom, a section of wall didn't sound right.
Sound?
Yeah, hollow.
Oh.
They pulled
knew it.
a heavy panel aside and revealed a narrow gap leading down into a triangular crawl space between the inner and outer walls. The opening was barely wide enough to squeeze through, like a few inches.
Jeez.
When their flashlights pierced the dark, they saw an arm. And when they yanked that arm, out comes this man named Daniel.
A man?
A man, teenager, 17, 16, whatever. He was crouched inside this filthy space, and his clothes were stained. His hair was wild. Around him lay scraps of food, trash, clothes. For months, he had been constantly sneaking in and out of this hiding place in the Bowens' home, listening and watching. And when he knocked from his hiding place, the sound carried throughout the walls and foundation, echoing across the house. And that's when that's why the family felt like they were surrounded. Like the girl's like, no, I heard it in my room. No, I heard it in my room. It's because it's echoing from the basement into the house. And so it's not that he was there every single night. It's not like he was living there constantly, but he was able to find his way to sneak in and sneak out of the structure itself. The officers obviously drag him out, and the stench and rot and like sweat nastiness followed him into the light.
Poor guy.
Yeah, the Bowens' nightmare was like no longer invisible, and their haunting finally had a name. His name was Daniel LaPlante, LaPlante. He had grown up in Townsend, Massachusetts, in a house where cruelty kind of seemed to be a regular thing in that household. I guess it depends on accounts, but later interviews described a childhood of like major abuse. But a lot of people question like to what extent, because he says that he was abused by his father and his stepfather and his psychiatrist. And so the chances of all three abusing him probably seem kind of low, but I mean, you never know. I don't want to say it's not possible. However, I will say it seems like a lot of people's speculation comes because most troubled kids come from some sort of horrible background like this. So don't come at me for that. I don't know if that's factual that like all these people abused him or not. However, it seems like he had to have a rough enough potential childhood to be doing such weird, scary acts. By his early teens, Daniel had begun breaking into houses around the neighborhood. And at first, it seemed like it was like a simple burglary. Like no one was ever home. He was just kind of slipping in and out, stealing some things. But the weird thing to me is that sometimes he didn't even steal stuff. Like he would go and just mess with people's mind by moving things around. Like we talked about, like pushing the chair over a little bit or putting things out of array so that people felt unsafe in their own home.
And then he wanted to hear their reaction, so started getting in their walls.
Yeah, so from our knowledge, this is the only house he stayed in. And like the walls and stuff. However, obviously he likes to torment people if he's willing to just mess with them psychologically by moving things around. And so in 1986, he turned his attention to the Bowens, like we talked about. By then, I guess he had already been stalking their daughter, Tina, calling her on the phone, even tricking her into dating.
Cell phones?
They had oh my gosh, maybe house phone. Yeah. But I guess he had, I don't know how he got her number, but somehow he got her contact and he kind of catfished her. I guess Tina liked going on dates, liked meeting guys, and he described himself as this like really stellar dude and great looking, all this stuff. So she went on a date with him, and this guy, Daniel, showed up and was like completely not what she was expecting. However, Tina is like super nice and she wanted to still try and be his friend. She felt like he was kind of an outcast. So he had like had dinner at the Bowens' house before. He had like been around.
He's like, I know this place.
Yeah, and he got real familiar.
He's like, you can use the bathroom. He's like, I know where it's at.
Oh, perfect, thanks. Yeah, exactly. And so like their friendship over time started like being kind of weird. And so she was rejecting him like as a boyfriend, but also as a friendship. And it seemed like that was just too much for Daniel. And like that creepy. Makes it even creepier thinking about the breadcrumbs on her face. To think that Daniel was standing over her. Well, it's like the fact that there was a strange person in your room when you were sleeping.
I know, he's eating over her.
Yeah, ew, I hate that thought so much.
That's creepy.
Oh my gosh, that's like literally the biggest fear ever. So the boy who had been mistaken for a haunting was in truth a deeply disturbed teenager whose crimes were only just beginning.
Just beginning?
Just beginning. And this is the end of part 1 of our part 2 series.
No way. It's a two-parter?
It's a two-parter.
Wow.
Our first two-parter. Daniel's story is so bizarre. You need to hear it in both his 1986 case and his 1987 case.
1 year later, he got out of jail?
1 year later. So we're going to go over it next week. So stay tuned for that. But that is the story, as we know it so far, of Daniel LaPlante.
Wow. Mr. Daniel.
Mr. Daniel.
The two-parter.
Isn't that creepy?
Yeah, it was creepy.
I already get so scared. Actually, one thing about us right now is that this house just got a big-time security.
Yeah. ADT.
Yeah, ADT. Shout out. So don't be coming for us because we got you locked down. But because of situations like this, you can never be too safe. So get your cameras, get your security, be safe. And before we wrap up, Blake, do you have any not so fun facts, true crime news, or any Ohio State updates?
Yeah, so we got an Ohio State update first. They played Ohio this week. Mm-hmm. We handled them pretty easily. Our offense moved really well. The only issue was in the red zone. We had a couple issues in the first first half. But we'll clean it up. We have a bye week, then we have Washington, which will be a good away game. Nice test for us. The freshmen played really well. Everyone else played really well, but it was cool to see Bo Jackson, who's a running back. He played really well and might start getting even more carries, become an RB1. Julian Sand played pretty well. He had some interceptions, but one was like a tip pass. The other one, he was getting sacked and tried to throw it away and went right into the guy's stomach. So not like he was reading the play wrong. It's just freshman mistakes. So I'm confident in him. And our defense played really well. So yeah. And now to true crime news.
Dun dun.
So the first thing in true crime news is coming out. Well, it's out of Colorado, but it says an Iowa man is accused of fatally stabbing a woman 23 times and leaving her body in a field. So authorities recently arrested a 55-year-old Iowa man in connection to the stabbing of a 29-year-old girl who was found in Colorado more than 2 decades ago. Creepy. So it's crazy that, with new DNA testing and
that's true,
and the family search or DNA stuff.
All the new upcoming technology.
Yeah, we're going to be catching all those old cases, I hope.
I can't imagine how much more technology is going to advance. It's going to be cool to see a lot of cold cases continue to be solved.
Yeah, I'm not exactly sure if that's how this one was solved, but I'm just thinking potentially.
Yeah.
But an 82-year-old woman is accused of fatally shooting her husband at a care facility.
That's wild.
And you can put the picture of this lady. She looks like a little old lady.
Yeah, you never guess. It's always the ones you don't expect.
Yeah. So an elderly woman allegedly fatally shot her husband at a care facility last week. This happened in South Carolina. On September 12th, the Beaufort County Sheriff's Office received a report of shots fired at the Preston Health Center. Responding deputies located 82-year-old Harriet Recker next to her husband, identified by WTOC-TV as 81-year-old Dennis Recker, who was suffering from an apparent gunshot wound. Dennis Recker died from his injuries. According to the sheriff's office, attorneys arrest Harriet Recker in connection with her husband's death. She faces charges of murder and possession of a weapon during the commission of a violent crime and was booked into Beaufort County Jail Detention Center. No idea why she did it.
That is so odd.
Yeah.
You think that they're so old. He's probably going to pass soon.
Yeah, seriously.
I mean, as horrible as that is to say, but it seems weird to take matters into your own hand in that way.
Yeah, that one's crazy.
That's really sad. I wonder how long they've been married also.
There's another weird one with that old person.
Old people are weird these days.
No, not with the old person, but another old person getting killed.
Oh.
Caretaker indicted after allegedly fatally shooting a 72-year-old man.
For what reason?
I don't know. 36-year-old caretaker was recently indicted on suspicion of fatally shooting a 72-year-old man. According to the initial release from the Dakota County Attorney's Office, on the night of April 11th, Jacob called 911 after he allegedly shot Michael Scully. I don't know how to say his last name. Responding officers reportedly located Jacob in the parking lot, and he was taken into custody.
Odd. So he called the cops on himself?
Yeah.
Huh.
Attorneys entered the apartment and discovered Jacob on a couch in the bedroom with a gun. Michael. On a couch in a bedroom with a gunshot wound to the face, and paramedics pronounced him dead.
So strange.
They found an AR-style rifle in the living room, a rifle magazine, and an empty carbine. Is that what happened? That's weird sounding. Near the victim's body. Jacob reportedly told officers he was Michael's caretaker, and they had resided together for the past 2 years.
Wow.
Or so. He allegedly claimed he shot Michael with the victim's weapon.
That's wild.
I know, that's random.
I wish that we got motives sooner.
I know. It's going to take a while, but that sounds really weird.
These poor old people. You'd always think that they'd be the most precious and safe, but no one's safe, evidently.
Yeah. And that's it for True Crime News.
Thanks for sharing. And thanks, everyone, for listening to part 1 of our first part 2 series. We'll be back next week with another episode of Siblings in Crime.
Thank you.
Thank you.